Welcome to Coach My Wellness, a weekly show dedicated to bringing you information about healthy habits and behaviors just for the health of it. Here's your hosts, Joanne and Tammy.
Hi, I'm Joanne Orshan from Coach My Wellness.
And I'm Tammy St. Clair.
Today we are part 2 of quick fixes and how to make lasting change. And the biggest part of making lasting change really has to do with understanding what your most valuable asset is. And what do you think that is? My well-being, right? Right? That going back to if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. And how we talk to ourselves and what chatter goes on in our heads is so much a part of the process for really getting control in our mindset.
Right. And sometimes that, we mentioned in the last show about that critical, very negative. And so we don't take care of our precious asset of ourselves and our well-being. And part of that is, what we're really going to talk about a lot today is around those words and how do we identify those emotions that go along, because when we're not feeling so great about ourselves, it quickly translates into how we talk to ourselves and about ourselves.
Right. So I think it really comes down to when needs are not being met versus when needs are being met in our general lifestyle. In the holistic world, we have been taught about what's called the circle of life, which the way I explain it to most people, if you think about a bicycle wheel and there are all of these different spokes, and in the center might be your optimal health, or if someone is looking to lose weight, maybe that's what the center of that circle is. But on the outside, all of those spokes could be anything from spirituality, finances, your current state of health, stress, sleep, your job, right? There are all of these different components. And if our lives are so out of balance, then it's very challenging to really get the crux of what we're looking for to make it better. And so many times it's just the chatter, right? That just goes on in our heads that we can't seem to stop in that self-talk that we hear all day long.
Right. And sometimes that chatter and that self-talk just overwhelms anything that we had made plans for. Previously, we had talked about having the desire, having the ability, having the reason, having everything else. And yet we then say, well, yeah, I have all of those things, but why can I just not do this? What's happening?
Maybe what we can do, Tammy, is help to have our audience identify a little bit about emotions and what the chatter might be when needs are not being met versus when needs are being met, in order to help them to evaluate what they need to focus on as far as their goals in having a more balanced life. How does that sound?
I think that's great, because until we know what the problem is, we don't know how to address it, right?
That's for sure. So let's talk about anger. I hear that a lot. People are angry, but let's break down what anger can mean, right? It can mean that you're enraged, you're furious, you're incensed, you're irate, you're livid, you're mad, you're resentful, or you're just plain ticked off, right? Those feelings of anger that sometimes we have a hard time identifying.
Right. And I think the ones there that people live with and they don't really think about it a lot is the resentful and ticked off.
Yeah.
And so they just live a life being resentful and feeling powerless. And that, I think, is a big piece of how people feel. And then in trying to change, they continue to translate that feeling of powerlessness into their efforts in getting better.
Right. So if somebody is, let's look at the positive place, right? When you have that positive mindset, when your needs are being met about things, you get excited, right? You know, when something happens that's really awesome in your life, you feel alive, you feel energetic, amazed, eager, enthusiastic, invigorated, passionate, right?
Right. Like you can, like whatever has been put in front of you, I can accomplish that. I can achieve that. I can overcome. And it really is moving between those two. You know, sometimes people are also feeling very afraid. They don't know what it looks like on the other side of change, right? They only know what it looks like on this side of change. And so they're apprehensive, they're concerned, they're dreadful, they're fearful. It's foreboding, you know, panicked, scared, suspicious. Like, I don't know. But on the other hand, they could be curious. What does it look like on that other side?
Well, I would think that it would be adventurous or being alert, being interested, being intrigued, being inquisitive, fascinated, spellbound, or even stimulated. When you look to try and figure a situation out instead of delving in all of the negativity, the possibilities are endless of what you can do to have something that you can achieve with success. Seamlessly with success, actually, right?
Absolutely. And you know, we often think, well, it's just too big for me. Who am I? I'm only one person. And yet in our lives, when it comes to our well-being, you're the only one person that really matters because you're the only one that can control it.
Right. And in my training with weight loss and working with clients, there is so much confusion in the marketplace. It's very easy to get confused. As I said earlier today, that there's a new diet being published every week. There's a new theory being published every week. Maybe to sell more books, I don't really know. But low fat, non-fat, no sugar, yes sugar, carbs yes, carbs no. The list goes on and on. So if you get very confused, that can sometimes stop you in your tracks because you don't know how to decipher the information. And you can be ambivalent, you can be hesitant, lost, puzzled, skeptical, or torn about which is really the best choice for you. Yet, if you were someone who was engaged in the process when there is a lot of confusion out there, and you were to engross yourself in figuring out piece by piece what could work for you in your life, don't you think you'd be more engaged?
Right, but that means I have to actually get involved and I have to I actually have to do something. You know, I have to be involved in it. I have to think about it. And so many times I think I know some of my clients, they get stuck in the thinking, right? They just keep thinking about it and thinking about it. And then it becomes, instead of curious and moving forward and engaged and absorbed in it, they continue to come back to the negative sides and get scared. And we're always, as coaches, as I myself as a therapist, are always encouraging our clients to get on the other side. What does it look like on the other side? Imagine what it looks like on the other side. Your doctor says you have to lose weight, and our first thought is, oh, I tried that. I tried everything and I really can't do this. But what does it look like if I did? What's the possibility there?
I think the emotions, though, that come up for a comment like that from a health professional or somebody that says that about you, it's embarrassing, right? How many times have people put weight on and you hide from the world? You don't want people to see you. You don't want to go out. Maybe you're someone who shies away from judgment, and perhaps you might feel, well, when I walk out of the room, is everyone talking about, look how much weight you put on, right? So there's a lot of shame that's involved in being embarrassed. And of course, if there's confusion and not being able to sort out making a decision, you can feel guilty, you can feel disgraced, mortified, remorseful, self-conscious, gross. These are all words that people say to me on a daily basis. And when you're in that mindset of feeling so down and embarrassed and confused and how did I let myself get this way type of thought process, when you can pull it together piece by piece, then what happens is you become hopeful.
Right. And in being hopeful, you're expected. You feel like you can do this. You get re-engaged in the process. You go back to being absorbed in what you're doing. You're optimistic and you have an expectation of positive things that come. And I think one of the other things that happens after people get embarrassed and they feel all those things, if we as coaches can help them become hopeful again, then they begin to be relaxed and in ease and realize that I can do this. It brings
there's also no judgment from us, right? I mean, we don't ever judge anybody. We empathize with the struggles and the challenges that our clients have. And our goal is to be a partner and a support system for someone, especially when they're really kind of down in the dumps.
Right. And on our part, there's no judgment. But on our client's part, man, I've often heard when you ask your client, well, what do you think about this? And they'll give you all the judgments, because I think we live in a time where that's what we're used to. And we think that that's what's going to make us change. How many times has a client said, oh, well, if I'm not hard on myself, who's going to be?
Right.
No, nobody. That's not how you change.
Right. And also, how many times have you heard this one? That if I do everything, I'm 100% in, or I'm not in at all. Like, it's these two extremes. And there has to be this place in the middle where I call it a work in progress, where you're working toward change instead of it being all for one or zero.
Right. And I think it's so funny you should say that, because we have this all or nothing belief, right? I'm either all in or I'm all out. And yet we don't live in a life that really is like that. I'm either all in or all out. Really? Because I can think of a lot of things where you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you're in school and you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you're learning to drive and you're somewhere in the middle. You're not great at driving, but you're also not illiterate about it. You've taken some classes, you've had some time behind the wheel. So yeah, you may not know how to do some things, but you know how to do a lot.
I think social media has really taken a toll on a lot of people, because a lot of people post these happy, perfect lives, and this is what we're seeing. No different from when it was the days when we had magazines and we would look at all these, skinny, happy models. And when someone says to me, I'll be happy when I lose 15 pounds. I'll be happy when I lose 50 pounds. I'll be happy when I lose 100 pounds. And the point really is that might be really terrific for you because you're always working to improve. I always say health first, right? But when you think about it, there are a lot of very thin people who are not happy. So happiness comes from within. That's the whole piece of what we're really trying to talk about, is that change that comes from inside of you for you instead of expectations from other people. And when we think of social media, I look at some of this, like Instagram specifically, and it's just, wow, I never had a body like that. How did they do this? And there's this almost jealousy that's involved, right? Or this envy or this yearning. Oh, if I was only, instead of being grateful and appreciative of who I am and what I am, and that people love me for me, not because of how I look, right?
And I think an important piece there is, will you be happy when you lose that 50 pounds? Do you really think so? Because you have to be happy now versus, and then that will carry you towards losing that 50 pounds. We always want to put off our happiness until I achieve this goal or that goal. Meanwhile, your entire life is passing you by and you're deciding to be miserable because you haven't achieved something that you think is what's going to make you happy. And like you said, happiness comes from within.
It certainly does. And there are so many of us that are just tired, right? Tired is a big one that we hear. Whether you're burned out from work, you're depleted, you are exhausted, fatigued, all of those words, sleepy, listless. Well, a lot of that could be worn out just because of the stress that we're just not taking care of our bodies. We might not be nourishing our bodies so that we're getting the nutrients and vitamins that we need in order to have our bodies function optimally. Even hydration, so important. Our organs need that. When people start incorporating, adding water into their repertoire of what they do on a daily basis, skin looks better, hair gets better. Things are just, your skin isn't as wrinkly. There are things that you can do just to feed, as you say, feed the flowers all the time. And what that does is that helps to renew and refresh us. We feel a little bit more alive when we're not so tired, right? We feel rested, we feel restored. In other words, are you waking up in the morning and you're that person who is still tired when you get out of bed? Or are you that person in the morning who had a really great night of sleep and you're ready to tackle on the world for the day? It's a matter of how you set life up to either be full or not so full. And if you're not so full right now, that's okay. A lot of us need some assistance or help to clarify where it is that we need to go down the road. And again, it comes back to goal setting for you individually, because it's all about you. It's your wellness vision for you and what we could do to get you to a better place.
Right. And the thing is that so many times we're not peaceful. We're not at peace with ourselves. Our emotions are so out of whack because of how our life is out of balance. We often talk about that life wheel and I think about, wheels going down the highway and you're just wobbling along. Your miles per gallon on your car, if your wheels and tires are like that, is really bad. And so in life, when we're that much out of balance, that we're just sort of wobbling along, we're putting out a lot of effort and not getting a whole lot of return. So it's really hard to be calm and centered and peaceful.
Right. Sounds more like you're being sad, like you're blue or you're depressed, you're disappointed, discouraged, gloomy. You might be grieving for a loss that you've had, whatever that might be.
Well, we've had 2 years of heavy loss,
heavy loss.
And having that, being able to recognize that, I think. And then,
I don't know about you, but I have found the upside of that is the peacefulness, not having to be overcommitted all the time, not having to have so many plans all the time. That doesn't mean that I don't want to be social, just not as committed, because I want to find time for my own self-care for me as part of that puzzle, right? Feeling more balanced, more centered, calmer, mellow, tranquil. I mean, those are all real great words to kind of think about, where am I at? Am I blue? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I discouraged? Versus just being at peace, where there's nothing more that I love to sing. When someone says to me, so how are things going? And I love saying, things are quiet right now.
Right.
Quiet. Because we never know. We never know when life is going to kick up a storm, because we can make all the plans of the world, as we know, and then someone has other things in store for us, hopefully things that we can handle, right? But it's nice to have calm.
Right. And that peacefulness. And I think as we're all putting our lives back together after these 2 years of massive disruption, we can decide how much we want to slot back in. We have the opportunity now to say, sorry, I can't do that this week. Or, you know what, I'll catch it next week. I've already got something going on. I remember before the pandemic, right? having 2 or 3 things scheduled at the same time and kind of breaking my head, because I'm a person that I hate disappointing people. And I hate saying, no, I really can't. So I end up with things scheduled all back to back with no real transition time between them. And so what ends up happening is I start out well, and then the next thing I fall behind because I didn't plan enough time or something ran over. And so that whole sense of peace that I had or being able to complete things is gone. And now I'm just agitated and embarrassed or ashamed that, I'm letting somebody down. And then I get upset and disquieted that, oh my God, here I'm letting someone down and they're going to be upset at me. And I've let go of my joyfulness.
Well, I look at it a little bit deeper than that, Tammy. I also think that people don't feel that they're entitled to self-care. So therefore, that's not a priority. So when you're prioritizing all of these other appointments and schedules that you have, well, where's the time for Tammy, right? It really comes down to that. I mean, Tammy has to be a non-negotiable. You have to be a non-negotiable in your own calendar in order to self-care for you, whether that would be the suggestion of incorporating your exercise routine, what your plan is, and put it in a calendar so that it's something that you show up for as a non-negotiable.
Right. And I think, I'm certainly not unique in feeling that way, and helping our clients see that part of their humanity is not always feeling like they're on the top of the heap, and sometimes falling behind a little bit, but it's all in that being vulnerable, being able to say, hey, this is something that's going on. I'm changing, I'm growing, and I'm looking for ways to move forward, and I'm looking for help to move forward.
That sounds to me a lot also, as I'm listening to you, as when people express a lot of pain in their lives. We've all been through a lot of change and pain, and there's been a lot of loss, and people are heartbroken, they're sad, they're miserable, they're just devastated and bereaved and don't know how to really work through the grief process and come out with that. And when we tackle those pieces one at a time, there's a sense of contentment, right? Where you're feeling a little bit, you're smiling again, you're a little bit more cheerful, you're feeling fulfilled, you're feeling satisfied instead of so empty and lonely.
Yeah, and I think so many times part of coaching is helping people to recognize where they're at in this menagerie of emotions. If anyone's been really listening, they're going to have picked up on that we have a ton of emotions sitting on a list in front of us, and we're working through them to provide words for people to be able to latch onto. Often there's a thing that we use with kids that has about 150 faces on with all different emotions listed on. And when I've got working with kids and even adults, and I'm like, well, what's going on? And they're like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm fine. And you're like, okay, hold on a second. Can you look at these faces? Tell me which face kind of expresses how you're feeling. And so many times just giving people words for how they're feeling, for the emotions, because unless we have our needs met, nothing else is going to really work. It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not fed and clothed, nothing else matters.
Right. So that comes back to being disconnected from other people also, and the isolation that many of us have experienced. Perhaps we're feeling alienated from other people, or disengaged or detached, or maybe even just disinterested in things that used to pique your interest before. Mm-hmm. And it's the social connections that we have that are truly so important. I mean, think about this. Since things have been lifting a little bit, and if you've had the opportunity to see family or friends that you haven't seen in so long, the first thing that you want is that hug, right? The affection, the closeness, the compassion. It just brings out oxytocin, right? It just brings out these hormones that really are the feel-good things, which is what we want. We are a species that thrives on affection and closeness. So those things are so important to really work through, and the connection with someone, being a part of something, just can give you such a feeling of gratitude for being a part of something that you can contribute to in a great way. And all of these things are just so positive as mindset to flip things from the negative to the positive. Even as, again, I've said earlier today, you might not even believe the positive, but if you keep putting those positive thoughts in there, sooner or later, that will become the reality because you're feeding yourself positivity instead of negativity.
Right.
I mean, we all have people. I mean, think about this, Tammy. How many times when someone calls you on the phone and you look at who's calling you and you say, not today, negative, no, I don't want this person right now. Or the other person where you always know you're going to get something warm, a laugh, genuine kind of affection from. Right? That's the type of thing that just enhances us to have the ability to want to make change and have better quality lives.
Yeah. And I think working through all of these, there's so many things that, coming back together and redoing all of this, getting our lives back.
So important. I understand it's so important. And, thank you for taking the time, everyone, to listen to us today. We're going to keep having conversations about this, and we'll be getting into more strategies and specifics as we grow our podcasts for you to listen to. Thank you so much for joining us on 360 Talk Radio. What a pleasure to be here. And we hope that you are benefiting and finding value from what Tammy and I are choosing to share with you. If you have any information you'd like from us, please reach out to us on our social media. You can reach us at coachmywellness.com, which is our website, as well as our Instagram, which is coachmywellness_CMW. We have a YouTube channel, and of course, every Sunday, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. East Coast Standard Time, we will be on 360 Talk Radio. So we just love being here.
And we invite you to send your questions, talk to us, interact with us. We will take a show and we'll go through and we'll answer the questions that you have, because we are nothing without helping those around us. So whatever you'd like to know, let us know. We'll take some time to go ahead and answer them.
Sure. And of course, if you have any particular topics that you would like for us to really dig deep into, we're absolutely into all of that. So we will keep you posted. And again, we thank you so much for joining us. I'm Joanne Orshan.
And I'm Tammy St. Clair.
Have a fabulous day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Coach My Wellness. For more information about healthy habits and behaviors, visit our website at coachmywellness.com and follow us on Instagram at coachmywellness_CMW for weekly live streams, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. We hope to see you there.